All right, everybody, thanks so much for joining me. Again, this is Geoff Bessin with Intuiface with the odd title of Chief Evangelist, which means I love my product in uncomfortable ways. I am being joined today by Bo Merkx of Nexmosphere. Bo, thank you for joining.
Thank you very much for having me on, Geoff.
We're excited, Bo. Thank you, because this gives us an opportunity to introduce all of this noise we've been making about our partnership with Bo's company, with Nexmosphere. This is all about a really seamless, airtight integration with Nexmosphere's array of sensors and actuators. We'll be together for the next 30 minutes or so. I'm going to go into a lot of detail about how the integrations work together, give you a little insight about the kind of things you can do with it, and then your next steps. So I'm going to kick it off by just giving you an overview of this integration. The press release formally went out yesterday, Tuesday. We informally announced this, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago. So for all of you super special Intuiface lovers who are members of the Intuiface community, you already saw this announcement. We gave you kind of a preview of it. Nexmosphere is this great company that focuses on retail, creating a set of what they call elements. These are sensors and actuators, everything from buttons and RFID readers, proximity sensors, to LED light strips and audio players, and Bo will give you all the details in a moment. They produce all of these different kinds of elements and make them available for use in interactive scenarios in store. We use them. Which one is the play mode? We have promoted through the press release our relationship. We are going to partner to identify opportunities that make sense for a joint install basis, to formally integrate the way we promote our software, the way we support our software. In fact, as you'll learn, Nexmosphere will even provide some Intuiface support. And perhaps most importantly, we have formally integrated the Nexmosphere controllers and elements into our platform. So it's a no-code integration of everything Nexmosphere does. Yes, in the press release, we promote it in a retail context. In practice, it's buttons, RFID readers, proximity sensors that you can use in any context. It's really beautiful. It works very simply. There's as you'll learn, a programming language they call the XScript language, a very simple means of communicating with Nexmosphere elements. You're going to be very impressed at how easy it is to incorporate their sensors and actuators in your experiences. If you look at what we call the Intuiface ecosystem, where do they fit in? Well, you know, in a way, it's bringing a connection between your digital experience and a real-world environment. Again, could be retail, but it could be museum, could be a trade show, what have you, where you have these devices, these sensors in the field, enabling typically humans, this could be animals too, but typically humans, interacting with your deployments. These events are recognized by Intuiface, enabling us to identify that something has happened and then initiate this analytics chain reaction, which is certainly huge for retail. This ability to track important events, collect information about those events, and use that information to gain business insight, learn from that deployment, learn about your target audience, make smart decisions about future deployments, and how to have a more effective installation. So it's sort of part and parcel of the way we promote our ability as Intuiface users to work with the Internet of Things, to work with these smart devices in the field, in the cloud, that we can communicate with and that can communicate with us. So that's sort of where it lives. I want to make sure you guys have a good understanding of Nexmosphere. So I'm going to turn it over to Bo and give her a chance to get you guys up to speed.
Thanks, Geoff. Yeah, so let's have a look at what we are all offering you at Nexmosphere. So I always like to start explaining that we eliminate the complexity of creating these interactive digital signage and POS presentations. And the way that we do that is by developing controllers, sensors, and actuators. And all of these together make up our sensor platform. And this platform can be used to create those customized experiences. So these experiences can be shaped by using video content, by using audio content, and lighting effects. And all of these outputs are triggered by the sensors during their interactivity with the user itself. Another great thing here is that the Nexmosphere system can be integrated very easily with media players. And a lot of system integrators that are building digital signage presentations are already deploying these media players in their day-to-day projects. So this makes it really easy to add on interactive functionality to these already existing or to these newer interactive presentations, basically. So let's have a closer look at the type of sensors that we offer by having a look at the next slide, Geoff. So this will give you a better understanding of the possibilities that you have in using these sensors. As I said, the collection of all of these sensors and actuators, that's what we call elements. And there are many kinds of elements in our portfolio. Also, we keep adding on new elements all the time. You can compose lots of different shopper journeys or user journeys by simply mixing and matching the right elements for the experience that you want to offer. On the next slide, we'll see some snippets of YouTube videos that we have. These are available on YouTube. If you type in Nexmosphere in the search bar there, you will get directed to all of those. And you can create either completely customized experiences, or if you want to stick to the more known applications, that's also certainly possible. So one of the things that we're showing here on these snippets of the YouTube videos is a lift and learn or a place and learn application. And these applications are based on RFID technology. These are applications where RFID antennas and drivers either detect a pickup or a place down of a product by a user or shopper. And content can be triggered based on these pickup or place downs, and also you could, for example, deploy lighting changes based on this. From a hardware perspective, this is done by attaching an RFID sticker under the merchandise and by installing an RFID antenna and antenna driver in the in-store furniture. The same type of lift or place and learn application can also be used using wired sensors. Geoff, could you show us again the overview of the sensors that we had before? No, one more. Yeah, that's the one. So if we look at the left upper corner, for example, we see some of those wired sensors. And to the right, you see an example of an RFID sensor. That's the round antenna that you see there. So also these wired sensors, they can be used for building the same kind of application where a wired solution would be a better fit. So these are sensors that are physically attached to the merchandise on display. And on the left so the left upper corner, that's our X snapper, which is a magnetic snapper used, for example, for phones or basically for merchandise that you want to have attached to your furniture. At the middle one that you see there, the little round dot, that's our X dot product, which is not a magnetic snapper, but can also detect that place down or that lift. Another much implemented example that we have is a storytelling application. So this is an installation in which the merchandise is fixed on a shelf or on any other type of surface, while content and synchronized lighting are triggered by a so-called presence and proximity sensor. The presence and proximity sensor is the little black sensor that you see also on the left side of this overview. So this sensor can detect somebody approaching your display or somebody that's standing in front of your screen, and then can tell a story about the products that are offered. So this is programmed content we're talking about, meaning that the story is always accurate and consistent. And well, in real life applications, this is a very important feature. When we are using buttons in certain applications, you can give the user the option to ask for further information, or for specific parts of your content, for example. And we both offer mechanical push buttons, which you see in the right bottom corner, and we also offer capacitive touch button that can be used for a similar purpose. Later on, I'll talk you through another application, but I don't want to overwhelm you all in one go. But this application example can be installed in any type of environment where a screen is installed. And there I will also talk a bit more about some other elements in our portfolio. One thing that I want to tell you about our controllers. In the middle of this overview, you see the little blue Nexmosphere controller there. And the main thing that's important there, or the main controller that I want you to remember after this talk, is our nano range controller. That's the one that you see in this picture. In the nano range, we've got 3 different models, and you don't have to remember which one to pick, but these different models offer you the possibility to connect either 2, 3, or 8 sensors onto its X-Talk channels. And all of these controllers, they can be interfaced to a media player, as I said before, using either a USB connection or a serial connection. And on this picture here, we are interfacing it with an Intel NUC, which uses a USB connection. It's also possible to connect more than 8 sensors on one controller. It's possible to connect as many as 250 elements onto one controller. But for the sake of keeping this a brief overview, I won't explain these right now during this webinar. Let's have a quick look at how you can talk through with the media player. So the communication between the Nexmosphere controller and the media player that's connected, it's done using our standard command set. And this command set can be found in the Xscript serial manual on the support section of our website as well. You have a link right there in the presentation. These elements, so these sensor elements, they send out a command each time that an element is triggered. And this happens even before having programmed anything within the user interface. So you can take these commands and work with them within Intuiface Composer to pair them to the content or to lighting changes that are required for the shopper experience or for the user experience that you want to build. And Jeffrey will explain how you can do this in practice by using Intuiface Composer.
Thanks, Bo. So sure, because at the end of the day, we want to figure out how to make that connection between the Nexmosphere controller in the middle of this diagram, connect with and communicate with your Intuiface experience. That's what we're going to talk about now. The most important thing I want to point out is everything I'm about to tell you is already documented. If you go to our help center, you type in Nexmosphere, the one and only article is about the Nexmosphere interface asset. Every single detail we discuss is outlined there as well and ready for you to use. But let's walk through the steps briefly. This is a Windows-based integration, okay? Got to be Windows. What we have done to facilitate the communication over a serial port with Nexmosphere controllers is to create a .NET DLL for the Nexmosphere interface asset. It is available on GitHub. Some of you may be aware that we're already using GitHub to store additional Intuiface intellectual property. We've put our interface asset for Nexmosphere up there as well. This is because we wanted it to be open sourced and available to you for additional modification. Out of the box, it will work with Nexmosphere controllers and thus all Nexmosphere elements. You don't have to do any coding at all for it to work. There's information on the GitHub page about how to add the DLL, add the interface asset to your projects, and make it available. All the information is there, no coding required at all. But if you want to do additional things, for example, maybe you want to create your own commands that represent a sequence of Nexmosphere X script commands. You could do that. You could enhance the interface asset to facilitate that. That's up to you. But for connecting with the Nexmosphere controllers, for sending one command at a time, nothing to do. Go to GitHub, grab the interface asset, follow the instructions on the GitHub page. It will tell you exactly what you need to do to incorporate that interface asset in your experiences. When you've added it into your experience, there's only one thing you need to do, which is specify the COM port to which the controller is connected. It's a USB connection. Bo showed you that. There's a USB cable connecting the controller to your Windows PC. That connection is represented by a COM port. In that screenshot on the upper left, it happens to be COM port 8. It wouldn't necessarily be that on your device. We need to know that. That is entered into the interface asset. It's the only thing we need to know. If you look back in the upper left, as far as I know, it's always prolific. So you know exactly what you're looking for in the port section, that it's a prolific device driver, and that item in parentheses is going to be the port number. Once we have the port number of the interface asset, you're done. It works. Any element supported by Nexmosphere through their nano controller. There's an additional controller, the XF, I think it is, Bo?
XN.
XN. So there's two sets of controllers. All you have to do is tell us the port number. And if you remember, you can daisy chain controllers. You can have multiple elements. So you're not limited to one or two. You can have a bunch. You now have a configured interface asset. The next step is to specify the triggers and actions that are relevant for your experience. So a trigger would be listening for a command from a sensor. An action could be sending a command to a sensor or an actuator. It could be either, right? So maybe you're listening for when the button is pressed or when motion is detected, or maybe you're telling the buttons to light up a certain color or to tell the LED strips to pulse at a certain rate. It can work in either direction. Broadly speaking, the XScript command is comprised of 4 pieces: type, address, format, and command. Type is the type of command. The address is the channel. If you remember, the controller that we saw in Bo's diagram had 8 devices connected to it. That's 8 channels. Each channel has a unique address. If you're daisy chaining controllers, that address number continues to increment and get bigger. So in order to specify an element, you specify the channel. That's all. Pretty simple. The format is essentially the length of the command, and then the command is the actual command. The same command can be different things because the same command can be used for different elements. So it is not one-to-one, it's one-to-many. So for example, if you look at the right, the command is X001A bracket 0. If I am sending that message to a button board, that means shut off all the LED lights. If I receive that message from the button board, that means no buttons are being pressed. If that message is sent from the motion detector, it means no motion is detected. So the address matters because I'm learning what's telling me that there's what's telling me 001A0, right? So you'll learn the syntax is pretty simple. The same commands can potentially, not all commands are used in more than one place, some are unique, but many can be somewhat universal, and it depends on the device. And that documentation site that Bo pointed out gives you great detail about, for each individual element, what do the commands mean and how do they work. So what you'd be doing in Intuiface is you would be listening for commands, and for those of you comfortable with triggers and actions, you know you can do conditionals, right? So you can conditionally say, well, if the command is from this channel, this address, and if it's got this particular command structure, then it must be a button, and that means that you get the idea, right? Typically, when you're using sensors and actuators, you've also considered the use of analytics, because again, you now have deep insight into what's actually happening in that device because people are interacting with it. And so you'll probably want to start adding your data points up front. So in this example, it's a button, it's a physical button. And if you look in the trigger parameters area, you can see there's two conditions. If an Nexscript command is received and the address is 001, every element will have a unique address by definition. So only one thing can have address 001. In our particular scenario, it's a button. If the address is 001 and the command is 17, which means, I believe, pressed, then you can see the then show a circle. So we're drawing a circle in the experience, and we're logging an event. And the event could be button is pressed, button 1 is pressed, or it could be in a retail environment, it could be, what article is associated with the button. Or if it's a museum, it's what artifact is associated with the button, right? You get the idea. So under the covers, it works like any other interface asset, works like any other integration. And as with any other integration, you can incorporate analytics. It's pretty simple. We created, well, I say we, I didn't create it, but very good people, very smart people created a sample experience. It's already in the marketplace. Some of you may have already looked at it. An experience pre-configured to work with one of Nexmosphere's demo kits. Specifically, it's demo kit XN04. You can see in a screenshot here, right here in the center. That's what the demo kit looks like, okay? What we did was built this to work directly with the board. If you connect the XN04 demo kit board to the same PC running this experience, you can interact with the physical demo kit and see the results in the running experience. What you're actually seeing here is a screenshot from the video. I actually have the video loaded up here. Where's the video? Here. So here's the video already on YouTube, already referenced in a user community article that some of you are familiar with. I believe it's also referenced in the Help Center article. This is a live look of the demo board. This is the representation of the demo board in the experience. I'm going to push play in the video.
And click on one of the buttons, like this one. We should get a green.
Notice when he pushes the button, it shows the script on the left. My voice is fighting me. So this way you can see the script in the experience, okay? I got this cold in France, so I blame France. So I advise you guys to take a look at that video, play with the experience. Bo, you want to talk about some use cases?
Yeah, I'll help you out with your voice there. I hope mine doesn't break up then. I'd like to talk to you about this specific use case, and we talked about this use case also in a press release that you might have seen that's done by Intuiface. So I took this use case and I'm going to explain to you how you can implement it into a real-life application. So in these applications in general, we're talking about a digital signage application here. So there's a screen in any type of environment that could use content and coming from a digital screen, from a digital signage installation. And in these kind of applications, we really want to draw somebody's attention, and we want to draw them into the message that we want to convey. So one of the goals that we have here is to lengthen the time that they spend looking at the message, and at the same time we want to make sure that this user feels serviced without feeling overwhelmed or pressured into things. So in order to accomplish this, we can help them we can help them select between products or between the type of information that they want to get from us. And we can do that by targeting our message to the right audience and by really giving them funneled information about the selection of options. For example, by using buttons. That's what we're doing in this example. So in this overview here that we wrote up, you see two sensors well, two of the main sensors here. And the top one, the XY14 there, that's a proximity sensor. And the XY520, that's a gender recognition sensor. So this is a sensor I didn't talk about before, so that's why I'm mentioning it in this one. So these two sensors are paired with our button interface. And onto the button interface, you'll see that we connected 3 mechanical push buttons with integrated lighting, detail, but important. So all of these elements, again, they're interfaced on the same Nexmosphere controller that has one connection to the media player, again, done over USB. And this one single cable supplies you both with the power that the sensors need in this case, and also with the communication channel. So this experience, you have to kind of imagine it like being integrated, of course, in a real life scenario. So the sensors are installed almost invisibly to the user, and the experience starts with the proximity sensor. So with that XY14 that we see there. So the sensor can detect whether somebody is standing in front of the screen. And it can also indicate how far away that person is standing from the screen. So you could design your Intuiface presentation so that if somebody is detected at a certain distance, the integrated lighting in the push buttons in this instance starts glowing and really draws their attention. So at the same time, you know, triggering really engaging content that looks good at this particular distance will really add value there. So when this shopper starts walking towards your screen, the proximity sensor will detect this. So the proximity sensor will also see if somebody is at a closer distance. And this can trigger a different action at this closer distance. So let's say that we're using a touch screen here. You could, for example, show touch buttons that are appearing on this screen, or if you're not using a touch screen, so just a regular screen, you could use the lighting in the mechanical push buttons to signal that several choices can be made by the user. So in this example, let's not forget that we've also integrated this gender recognition sensor, and this sensor can trigger gender and age targeted content, and it can do so from a 2.5 meter distance. So this allows you not only to choose when you want to show this message, but also it allows you to choose which message and which selection options you want to offer to a specific people that are interacting with this screen or with this presentation. So in this particular example, I didn't include lighting in the form of animated LED strips or different kind of LED strips, but this can also be considered. Let's call it an add-on that you can install, and with that you could use compelling lighting changes upon detecting the shopper. For example, let's say that they're walking by and you really want them to turn their heads around. You could do that with lighting as well. So the whole purpose of this is to really draw that attention to your presentation. So this is just one specific example indicating how flexible you can get in creating your own specific experiences for the installation that you are working on. So don't forget, we have that whole range of elements that you can really mix and match to create just that experience that you want to offer. Another very important part, and Geoff already mentioned this briefly, but a very important part with all of these sensors is that throughout the whole duration of the experience, all of the incoming commands are collected by Intuiface. And all of these incoming commands, these incoming triggers, they can be used to analyze the use of the presentation. So you can, for example, analyze how successful your presentation is. You can analyze which kind of people are interacting with your presentation. You could trace how good your presentation for example, your seasonal promotion is going. And with all of this data, you can really steer for success. Let's say you can make little changes to your presentation so it performs better. And in general, when we're talking about data, collecting data in your presentations can really give you an insight in what's successful, what's not successful. That's also very important. That's very important information as well. And I mean, as designers and as installers, new ideas are often born in a meeting room or on a drawing board, but you really want to know if these ideas are also performing, in real life situations. So maybe I would like to hand it back over to Geoff so he can give us some more insight about how we can convert all of this incoming data from the sensors into easy to read and easy to use data.
I mean, certainly, thanks, Bo. And I'll try to motor through. If not, Seb can jump in. Certainly, in all the retail scenarios we discussed, very data-rich environment. A lot you can learn about the user, about the context, the weather outside, that sort of thing. But the important point for me, I think, is that any deployment you consider where there could be value to collecting data, you probably should consider not just touch, but other means of interaction to make it stickier, more engaging, more likely to draw attention, to get that interaction, and then leverage that interaction to generate the insight you need to make educated decisions about the effectiveness of that deployment. If you have clients input to the set of key performance indicators they're tracking for that deployment, there's a huge business insight opportunity here. Retail, it's obvious. You need business insight in your hyper engaging sort of deployments to make sure you're as effective with the money spent, with the effort taken as possible. But really, any environment, you spend the time and effort, you want to make sure you're getting bang for the buck. And when you're working with the sensors, you have assured yourself of a set of interaction events that are a trigger point for collecting data. So it's a big deal. All right, so next steps. There is another webinar tomorrow. So today's webinar was for the world of Intuiface lovers, and I think I can call you lovers. Tomorrow we have another webinar for Nexmosphere users, perhaps lovers. If you have an interest in seeing sort of the Nexmosphere perspective, why don't you just contact us? We'll send you the registration link. Nexmosphere has just authored a how-to guide. So if I go to, I believe it's here. So nexmosphere.com/partner/Intuiface. We have a page. There's already a setup manual. So let's call it the beta version of a setup manual authored by Nexmosphere, illustrating how to use Intuiface with Nexmosphere, written for their audience, as it were, which is great news. And then, no, wrong one. There. Nexmosphere is also building their skill set in Intuiface so they can provide level 1 support to their users, which is really awesome. What can you guys do? There is the sample experience in the marketplace. You don't have to use it with Nexmosphere elements, but it's not going to do you much good. The benefit of the demo kit, XN01, is it automatically, as I showed you in the video, works with it. There's even this little template you can see on the right that's part of the experience. You can attach any element you want. It doesn't have to be the demo kit. Attach any element you want, connect to it, send commands, receive commands. Pretty awesome. You can talk to Bo about getting your hands on the demo kit. It's about €1,000, give or take. She can tell you all about it. On the community post, so here on the community posting about Nexmosphere at the bottom, this is a 26-minute video built by Seb Monnier. Very detailed look at the integration, how to make it work. Anybody in Intuiface, if you really want to go under the covers, this is it. Watch that video, and you will know everything we know. That community post will continue to be updated with additional information as we go on. That's my email address, so of course, You can contact any of us at Intuiface, and we'll be ready to help you out. This is Bo's email address, bo@nexmosphere.com. She's your contact. If you have any interest in the demo kits or have questions about Nexmosphere, you can start there as well. One last thing before I open it to questions. Seb, I'll turn it over to you. Just a reminder, we are at ISE. First, Intuiface has its own conference, Interactive 2020. Second annual conference. If you missed it, you missed the greatest conference ever. Free to attend. It's on the first day of ISE. And by the way, we can get you into ISE for free. So 2 bangs for the price of 1. And the price is 0. We'd love to see you at Interactive 2020. We'd love to see you at our booth at ISE 2020. Nexmosphere will have a presence at ISE as well. And we'll be sure to be talking about each other at those shows as well. So we hope to see you there. I just heard a voice. I don't know if there's any questions, but Seb, I'm going to turn it over to you, see if there's any questions you'd like to highlight.
Sure. Thank you, Geoff, and hi, everyone. So I tried to answer most of the questions already in the chat room. If you have other questions, please do not hesitate. You still have time to post them. I would like to come back on one of them, which actually will be a question for Bo. So Bo, the question is from Christopher, and he says, I use LED strips for a photography. Can I use the current ones I use, or can I only use your LED strips? I didn't know how to answer this one.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So it's very depending. Well, first of all, you can always use LED strips that you source yourself. So LED strips in themselves are not a Nexmosphere product, but they are an accessory that we offer. The only thing that's very important is that you are, of course, able to interface the LED strips that you're using with the Nexmosphere controller. And sorry, when you're using 5-volt LED strip, we have a really neat little interface for that you can also use on the Nano controller that you see here. When you're using 12-volt LED strips, you can also interface those, but you will need that bigger XM controller that I didn't show and talk about, but I can certainly send you more info on that as well.
Thank you, Bo. Chris, I hope this answers your question. Okay, so we have a new question from Gordon. Can the COM port value be bound so an on-site tech could enter the value into an Excel file? Yes, and even better than that, actually, if you look at the sample we created and we published on the marketplace, we added a little interface asset bonus in addition to the Nexmosphere, which is called a COM port detector. So basically, you just type in the name of the device you're looking for in this detector, let's say Prolific as the manufacturer, and this little IA will look automatically for the right COM port that fits the name you're looking for, and then you just bind the Nexmosphere on this one, and you're good to go. So check the sample, see how it is built, and if you have any questions, just come back to us on the Intuiface support. I will be sure that you get an answer to that. So a new question from Paolo, and again, this one may be for you, Bo. For developers interested in learning the system, it would be good to have a link to the right demo kit to purchase.
Yeah, so my advice to people that want to purchase a demo kit is to send me an email. And what I'll do then I'll give you my advice on which kits are best for you. And I'll also give you some information on the best channel where you can purchase one.
I will add something on this one. In the sample we published on the marketplace, so far we only integrated the XN04, which is the biggest kit, I think, that exists.
Yeah, it's the latest kit, yeah.
And that's because that's the one I have here in the Chicago office. We also have the XN02 and 03, so we'll probably add new scenes in the sample in the coming weeks or months. But any kit you purchase, you get from Nexmosphere, you will be able to use it within the sample. So new question from Marcelo. The demo kit include all 8 elements from the presentation. I would say it depends on which kit. Again, the one we used in the video was, yeah, in this one, thank you. That's the XN04, which includes following the numbers. Maybe, Bo, you can name them so I don't make a mistake on the real names on the devices.
Yeah, sure. So if we look at the left upper corner, we see those mechanical push buttons that we also saw on the earlier shown example. And those are integrated on the push button interface that we also saw on there. If we look on the right upper corner, we see a proximity sensor, which was in the example as well. And just underneath that is a short LED board, so you can also play around with animated lighting. Then at the bottom, on both sides, there's two integrated RFID antennas with their drivers. And right in the middle of those, there's a touch button that's integrated into the demo board, and there's a pickup sensor, the magnetic pickup sensor. But it doesn't come with all the elements that you saw in the layout that I sent you before. However, the layout that I showed before is it's actually a copy of a development kit that we also offer. So what I usually recommend to people is to start working with the demo board kit, and especially with Intuiface, because they built a great demo on this kit. But if you really want to start specifying projects, then it's probably also a good idea to get a development kit. And a development kit consists out of separate components, the ones that you saw in that other layout that we talked about before, and yeah, to that one exactly. And with this, so you'll get a complete kit of these separate elements, which is great to have on your desk when you really want to start, playing around with the elements and making different combinations than the ones on the demo kit itself. So both of those kits will be things that I'll recommend to you once you contact me by email.
Thank you, Bo. Marcelo, I guess you got the answer here. Gordon again, can the sensor support an extension cable? I can see this one, yes, because I'm using one here in the office. How far can the controller be from the PC? Bo, any insight on this one?
Yeah, so the length that we recommend there is 1 meter and 80 centimeters. If you have a look again at this overview here, you see that CAUM6B cable there. That's the longest cable that we have, and that's 1 meter and 80 centimeters.
Okay, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I am using a 6-foot extension cord in addition to the cable that came with the board on my side, and it works perfectly well.
Yeah, well, and another point that we could discuss there is, in case there is the need for longer cable lengths, there is an alternative, and that's again using that bigger controller unit that does come with the possibility to use a type of extension cables, which we call shop bus cables. So in case that's needed, just send over your project requirements and I'll advise the best controller and wiring method there.
Similar question. From team, how far can this? Can you have some longer cables here as well, maybe? Bo?
Sorry, I lost you for a second. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, we lost you for a bit there, but.
Yeah, sure. So sorry for that. How far can the distance be between the sensors and the Nexmosphere controller? So not between the PC and the controller, but between the controller and the sensors.
Yeah, the answer there is the same. The longest cable length available is 1 meter 80. And also, again, so if the cable length from the actual sensor itself to the controller will always be 180. However, oftentimes, if you're, for example, using many different sensors in one setup, we can divide those the installation, the positions of the sensors using XM extension units.
So next one, question from Scott. Do proximity sensors need to be outside of a cabinet to be accurate, or can they be hidden?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So this particular proximity sensors that we see here, they need a visual. So they can be hidden a little bit, but the little eyes, let's say, of the sensor always need to point outwards. So it's not completely invisible. There is one, well, there are many elements that I didn't discuss yet, but there's one that could be a solution in this in these kind of scenarios, and that's our motion sensor. And that's a sensor that's based on Doppler technology. So with this sensor, you can set a level of motion, a level of movement that it detects on, that it triggers on. And that's a sensor that can also look through different materials. It can basically look through any type of material except for metal, because metal disturbs the Doppler field. So that would be a better sensor in case you want to really hide it away from everything. If you want to put it, for example, inside of a kiosk.
Thank you. So again, a question about the demo kit. Do you have a demo kit that includes a camera and proximity sensor?
Yes, we do. That demo kit would be the one that you also used in your video. So that's the DM-XN04.
That's DM-XN04. So you have the reference in the chat in the answer here. Question about RFID. And Geoff, please interrupt me when we are out of time for questions. What brand of RFID can be used, or does it have to be some special RFID? I'm guessing about the tags, but it has to be used with the readers you provide.
Yeah, there are some specifications that need to be followed when choosing RFID tags. So first of all, you can also purchase those tags with us. But after the first initial testing phase, or in case you want to have large amounts of tags, you can also purchase those yourselves. And also there, I can send you all of those specifications that they should have by email. So just drop me that email, drop me that question, and maybe Seb, we can offer some kind of answer base later, maybe on your yeah. So I can include that in there as well.
Maybe a couple more, Seb, one or two more.
Yeah. So a question from Alonso. When a sensor detects the proximity between it and the customer, how do you configure a speaker to activate specific sound after the sensor is triggered? So if I understand correctly, that would be depending on the distance provided by the proximity sensor. So when the distance changes, I'm talking with the Intuiface vocabulary here. When the distance changes, if the distance is lower than a certain value, then start to play music. So that would be the when and then, the trigger and action in Intuiface. And the way you would build that using the proximity sensor as the input and your player as the output. Alonso, I hope this answers your question. We have another one from Luis. Is it possible to build a dashboard based on the logs that the Intuiface might provide, or can it be built from Intuiface software? I understand the question in the sense of analytics. And yes, definitely you can build an analytics dashboard based on what the Intuiface experience will receive from the interface asset, the Nexmosphere interface asset. So all the triggers, I think, Geoff, you showed that a little bit in one of your slides, the trigger in action with analytics. When any trigger is received, this one, thank you. When an Xscript command is received, then on the right side, you see log event on the data tracking, and you can log as many parameters as you want. So you could log the name of the event based on the address using the conditions. So right now we see on the conditions at the bottom right corner, where address equals 001, command equals 17. On the XN04 board, this condition means the button on the left side or the right side, one of the two, was pressed. You could log the event button 1 pressed, and then you can build your charts and dashboards as usual within Intuiface.
Thank you, Seb. Thanks, everybody. I guess we could keep going, right? But we'll, out of respect for time and Bo's sanity, we'll call it here. But let me put our email addresses back up on the screen. We can continue the conversation in the user community as well as one-on-one. You can understand why we're pretty excited about this relationship. It's all well and good to talk about how easy it is to build things with Intuiface, but this is a perfect example, right? Lift and learn is now something that can be easily achieved from a hardware perspective in seconds. And then it's just a matter of coding, putting down a couple extra commands and using your existing Intuiface skills to make it a reality. It's pretty cool. Bo, thank you so much for your time. Bo will be hosting a webinar tomorrow for her audience. If any of you are interested, let us know. We'll get you the registration link. Otherwise, we hope to see your awesome work in the field. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care.